I'd like to welcome you to this very exciting panel on carbon capture and storage. We're going to talk about how we can make the carbon capture and storage concept turn it into a real solution in Greece. Just to set a bit of context and give some background for any members of the audience that may not be familiar with the concept. There's a very significant part of the CO2 emissions globally, around 28%, which are what we call hard-to-abate emissions. And they come mostly from production processes in various industries, like the steel industry, cement industry, etc., which, you cannot remove them on their own. So one of the most realistic alternatives is to actually capture them and store them in safe locations, usually geological formations, depleted oil fields, etc. So this requires the setup of a value chain where emitters have to invest in capturing these emissions. They have to be transported through special infrastructure, liquefaction and transport, and eventually to locations where have been developed specifically for this purpose. This requires a number of market participants to work together and also the state to create a regulatory framework that is clear and helps de-risk the investments that each part of the value chain has to realize to make sure that these investments are viable. So there are, trying to create this well-functioning value chain in Greece, there are, at least in my mind, three key questions. One is, what are the right characteristics of such a regulatory framework that will de-risk investments and enable the investments in the infrastructure required? How we ensure there is sufficient storage capacity in Greece, at least for the major emitters, and how we can develop the right transportation infrastructure to link the emitters to the storage facilities. So having said that, I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists who provide their insights on these subjects, namely what the key challenges are with creating such a value chain in Greece, and also what they feel the key actions are to address these challenges. I will try to go through in the order where we're sitting, and also represents the order of the value chain. So we're starting from emission towards storage. We have with us Mr. Nikos Bozos, who's the CCUS manager from Heracles Group, to give us the emitters' perspective. Ms. Galli, who is the CEO of DESFA, who plays a key role in the transportation infrastructure, as well as Ilias Bekiros, who's general manager of Corinth Pipeworks, who are very well advanced in the technology of the transportation infrastructure required. We have Mr. Nikos Rigas, who is the head of carbon storage from Energean. We are currently developing the only location in Greece where CO2 can be stored. I have Mr. John Clark, who's my partner from the UK, leading our global CCS team. He will share with us best practices from other markets of how they have tackled the challenges we will discuss. And last but not least, Mr. Efthimios Tartaras, who is the head of Geoscience at EMEIA, plays a central role in actually creating this value chain. And he will share us the overall view, I think, on the subject we'll discuss. So, to get started, Mr. Bozos, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to all, and thank you very much for the honorary invitation to discuss about the carbon capture and our project that's going on in Olympus. I would start a little bit by stating the obvious, that we all witness that climate change is here. Its effects are deploying every day. They affect our lives. And they give us unprecedented challenge on how we run our business and our lives. Thankfully, in our group in Heracles and in Holcim, we have taken the decision to embrace the change and to do actions in order to be able to run net zero operations by 2050 and lead the change that it is necessary for our industry. Now, Olympus, which is our flagship project in Greece, it's part of our investment plan of 600 million euros. It is about decarbonizing our cement operations in Myllaki, in EMEIA, and it's one of the 7 projects that the group of Holcim has funded by Innovation Fund, by ETS Innovation Fund in Europe. So through this support, it's obvious that we are the leaders in the field, and we are on developing innovative technologies in order to abate CO2 from our operations. Now, the target of Olympus is not only to produce net zero cement that would be the cornerstone construction material for green buildings and green infrastructure in the country, but as well, the ambition is to create a technology hub and an innovation hub in EMEIA, which is one of the most undeveloped areas and de-industrialized areas in Greece. Now, for the challenges that Dimitris said, we could say for many panels to come, but I would start from the market and the business environment that has to be created for the CO2 technologies of abatement. This applies both to the regulatory framework, that still it is under development, and we hope that we will have it, I would say, by year-end in the country, or even earlier. And the second thing is the market for the green products, that they have to foster the demand, and this could be done, for example, through state green procurement or giving incentives to individual developers to build environmentally sustainable buildings. In Greece, we have worked hard, and we are currently privileged to have 3 ongoing capturing projects, partially funded by ETS Innovation Fund, amongst fierce competition, and the storage side of Energean that is being developed again with funds from RRF and CEF. So we are in a unique position, I would say, in Europe to build a very strong and resilient and robust value chain for decarbonization and innovation. And in this way, we are in a position to offer multiplying benefits to our economy with value-added processes, products, jobs, and we are able to compete with the efficient chains that they are being developed mostly on the northwest part of Europe. The whole value chain has secured $750 million as funding, so it's obvious that we cannot afford to miss this opportunity for the country. Now, the inherent risks that we face as a value chain outside the control boundaries that we have, examples are a CO2 price plunge due to Europe's deindustrialization. It would be a spike in the cost of the green energy, and this is very important because all projects are energy intensive, or the high insurance premiums that they are required because still the market is not developed. All of them remain significant, but I would say that we can cope with pride and adopt de-risking tools that have been successful, like the carbon contracts for difference, like state guarantees, as they have been developed already in UK, Netherlands, in Norway, in Denmark, and in Germany, in order to be able to mitigate those risks and reach the final investment decisions for all the projects. Especially the UK model of state regulation under the regulatory asset-based methodology, combined with competitive contracts for difference, competing on the technology of the abatement, in my opinion, it could ensure the whole of the value chain, guaranteeing adequate returns for all the actors in it, and foremost, safeguarding the ambitious decarbonization plan of Greece. Other technical constraints like CO2 specifications, efficient energy use, or scarcity of skilled personnel, because we shouldn't forget this, and competent professionals are present in all stages of the value chain. But I believe with open communication and the collaboration that we exhibit amongst us, all actors, from capturing, transportation, sequestration, including our technology providers and suppliers, we will overcome them in due time. And we will be helped because projects all over Europe and the world are maturing and the technology is being tested. Lastly, required permitting in all areas should be faster than the usual rhythm in Greece, but we believe with the momentum from the Green Deal, from the Industrial Green Deal, from the Net Zero Industry Act, and with continuous effort of the authorities and of the ministry, we remain optimistic that we can deliver our commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico. So, Ms. Galli, DESFA, as we said, is a key player in the infrastructure part of the value chain.
So what is your view on the challenges and actions to turn this into something working?
Let me say that, of course, building a brand new value chain, like in this case the CCS, is a much more complex exercise than expanding a business that already exists. And here what we see, let's say, the challenges, but also in this case for us, and the opportunity is the fact that we certainly need a very much orchestrated effort from all the players. Because the goal of the CCS value chain, in a way, is to make it economically feasible. The technology exists to store CO2 underground. Of course, there is a lot of technological advancement needed on the scale also of capturing. But what we needed to make sure is that from the emitters to the storage, and not only at national but international, European level at least, let's say all the pieces are developing in an harmonized and simultaneous way with the goal of reducing the cost, because at the end this is the cost for the industry. So it is an exercise in affordability. So the way we have been looking at this development is the typical of an infrastructure player to see how, let's say, an integrated logistic solution can help reduce the cost, so create a set of infrastructure that, like in the natural gas business, can serve a plurality of players, and can also unlock access to multiple storages. So in this respect, what we are looking at developing is a network of CO2 pipelines that will gather the CO2 collected by some of the larger scale emitters in the first phase, and develop a liquefaction facility, a single liquefaction facility connected with the regasification terminal of Revitussa, which, and the reason why we are looking at this solution is twofold. First of all, because Revitussa, being a regasification terminal, we are expert in handling cryogenic products, liquefied natural gas. But liquefied natural gas can be used to cool down the CO2. And this means a saving in terms of energy consumption, which is bringing the variable cost for the liquefaction at, let's say, the ratio is 1 to 7 with respect to the use of new energy needed for the liquefaction. And on top of that, Revitussa has a very deep harbor, a deep port, and this means that the liquefied CO2 can be loaded on ships which are bigger. And bigger ship means that the shipping cost, both for Prinos, but in the future for other storages, being Italy, Ravenna, Egypt in the longer term, can be reduced significantly. So what we are looking at is to how, by integrating, let's say, various emitters in one single logistic solution, and we are going to create both efficiency and optionality. And the further level of optionality comes from the fact that today we are talking with 4 emitters that are big enough to afford the challenge and the cost of developing a CO2, let's say, a capturing scheme. But let's say in the future there will be more mid-scale emitters for whom probably the only effective solution is carbon capture and sequestration. And therefore having let's say, integrated solution with the possibility of open access on a RAB basis, typical of the gas industry where we operate, will create the possibility in the second phase for smaller emitters to gain access to an infrastructure at affordable cost. So, of course, my colleagues will go much more into detail about the need of having clear access rule, let's say, the need of having clear, let's say, incentive schemes, because at the end we are comparing an overall cost that is fixed, that will be fixed, with the variable cost of the ETS. So this brings a lot of risk, and the contract for difference is an important tool. But I think that, let's say, the success passes also through the ability of all the players to act in a coordinated manner and to ensure that we all aim at making these economically viable and efficient.
Thank you very much. Ilias, we were talking the other day about, the technological side of the transportation. I think you have great insight to offer in terms of the subject, how you feel best ways to tackle the transportation part of the value chain.
Sure. I'll actually continue, of course, the thought process from Maria, because we are fully in line on this thought process. And coming from the industrial side of the equipment manufacturer here, we are very happy and very proud that we have already contributed with our know-how and our R&D in various international projects around the world. So we can also contribute in the projects that are happening right now in Greece. So believe it or not, pipes made in Greece are being delivered and being installed right now from Gazuni in Netherlands, in Porthos CO2, in BP UK project, in Northern Endurance project, and also in the United States, Exxon carbon capture project. So there is in Greece know-how in order to facilitate, of course, the plans of the emitters, the TSOs, and of course the regulatory part of the story. And it's not an easy game. It's not hydrogen, it's not gas. CO2 is a different story, and it's this so-called anthropogenic CO2 with a lot of mixes. I don't want to get too technical, but this is way more complicated than it seems and than it sounds. And I'm glad that we can support the plans in Greece in order to be in line with what we are trying to do, and in line timely, in line also with what Northwest Europe is doing and also United States are doing. So we have still the chance to become a hub, I would say, in Greece, and we are able to support these plans in order to think big and not only on a spot-based, projects and get on with it. And we really can do it, and we are ready to help with this, and we are glad that we are with this team in order to do the best possible scenarios. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilias. So, Mr. Rigas, Energean is in the first stages of development of the storage location in Prinos. So you have, I think, a first-hand view of, the challenge at the forefront of this development. What are your thoughts on these challenges we've already discussed?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me as well. I want to start by just capturing the image of this panel. It's carbon capture from concept to solution. Carbon capture is not a concept anymore. It's a solution. As we heard, there is 5, 6 projects that are being built at the moment. They're supplying pipes. It is happening. Europe is decarbonizing through carbon capture and storage. It is not a matter of if we should do it or does it work. It's a matter of when we should do it. And the option we have here is either being one of the leaders, being one of the first to do carbon capture and storage, which we are ready, the emitters are ready, the gathering stations are ready, the pipes are ready, or do we want to wait until the rest of Europe decarbonizes and risk losing our industry, which is, I would say, one of the things as Greeks we should be proud of. We have one of the oldest cement businesses in the world. We have one of the biggest refineries and some of the biggest refineries in Europe. This is something that gives Greece more things to be proud of. So it's definitely not something we want to lose, and it's definitely something we want to lead, and we want to be the first in the world to decarbonize. At the moment, Prinos itself is an old oil field. It started production in the 1980s. It's towards the end of its life. So we have this opportunity of a field that is empty. It's the only field that has ever been produced in Greece. And with this project, not only do we decarbonize our industry, but we also give life for another 20, 30 years to a field that has been part of the north of Greece and has given business and work to the local communities. This is a project that, at the moment, as mentioned earlier by Nikos, has received 750 million in subsidies for the capture, for the transportation, for the liquefaction. And we are at the crossroad where it is time to get it done. There's some small things that need to be finalized, that need to be worked together between us, the emitters, the government. But for the first time and for one of the very few times, we are ready to be one of the first in Europe to decarbonize in an industry that's extremely difficult, and until today we never had a solution for. So if I can leave this panel with a message, it's not a concept, it's a solution. Let's get on with it and execute it and make it a solution for Greece as well.
Thank you, Nico. John, first of all, thank you for making it through Constantinople this morning due to the strike. We're really eager to hear, your view, having the experience of the UK, some of the problems and the options we discussed. How have they been tackled?
Look, Dimitris, it's great to be here, and I should say thank you to everyone in the audience for letting me talk in English. I'm guessing the Greek for carbon capture is probably something like carbon capture, but No? Okay.
No.
So I'm keen to learn some new words, and it's fantastic to be welcomed here. But if you step back, carbon is a commodity, except the value of the commodity is putting it in the ground rather than getting it out of the ground. I think increasingly, actually, the value might be in using that CO2 as well, and we've not heard that yet on the panel, but certainly when I talk to countries around the world about CO2, it's utilisation and sequestration, and I'd encourage Greece to sort of think about the opportunities that CO2 can present beyond just putting it in the ground. But back to CO2 as a commodity. If the CO2 is the same in the UK as it is in Greece, as it is in China, as it is in the US, the question you're all asking is, well, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you make Greece the place where people want to come and invest in that commodity rather than in the US or the UK or somewhere else? And the key to that is really, how does the value chain work? It's no good having the best capture opportunity in the world or the best pipelines in the world or the best store in the world if they're not all connected and working together, because capturing carbon with nowhere to put it or nowhere to use it is not worth anything. Similarly, having a store that's been around for many years, great, but it's going to stay empty unless somebody captures carbon and brings it to your store. So that really brings in the role of the government, and how does government create that regime to get all of the actors in the value chain to come together, to encourage that collaboration. And the difficult thing is not the collaboration, because from what I've heard, you all want to collaborate. The difficult thing is collaborating at the same time. Because it's no good if your store's ready tomorrow, but your emissions aren't captured for another 5 years. You're going to be sat there waiting with capital deployed. I liken it to sort of trying to build a tunnel, but you're starting from both ends, the emission end, the storage end, and you've got to try and find a way to meet in the middle at the same time. And that's the challenge that government face. The other challenge that government face, if we're realistic, that the economics don't work. The cost or value of carbon is less than the cost of capture, transportation and storage. So in some way, shape or form, government have got to provide support, at least today. Now that might be subsidies, that might be tax incentives like you have in the US. It might be creating economic models like the regulated model which we have for storage and transportation in the UK, or the CFD model which we have for emitters. Or it might just be about sharing risk, and that sort of taking of risk by government is often what is needed to get both ends of that value chain to make their FIDs at the same time, so the emissions are captured when the store is ready, not 5 years too late or 5 years too early. But I do think government thinking is moving on, and we were talking a little bit about cost, but to some extent that's the wrong question. The question for government is probably what's the cost of not doing this? And that gets you into industrial policy. And if you can't decarbonise your industry, there's a real chance that industry gets out-competed by other geographies. So I think government is starting to look at the value that carbon capture and utilisation or sequestration can deliver. And that gets into difficult decisions for government. How do you choose which emitter projects go first, or in the UK, which storage projects get prioritised? And then the second question, which I think is really important, and it's one that's important for the commercial players who are on my right and the government on my left, is at what point does this become economic? And I think if you talk about the technologies, the cost of capturing carbon is going to decrease. The transportation is going to become more efficient as we have learning effects and scale effects. And the price of carbon is going to go up. So at some point those lines will cross and you'll move to a model where actually it is economic. And it's economic without the government having to fund things and without corporates having to sort of have these panels where they're saying, this would be great, but we need help from the government. And And how do you build those business models that are sustainable for the future? Because you were talking about the 80s. Well, the first carbon capture happened in the 60s, but it was used to enhance oil recovery. Now, capturing carbon to get oil out of the ground is maybe not the model of today. Capturing carbon to store it might be the model of today. But what's the model of the future? And that's where we could probably spend a lot longer talking about, but I'm conscious of the ticking red clock, so maybe I'll pass on.
So just to the organizer, the time cannot be right, because we had 40 minutes and it started at 20, right? So we have some more time. So, Femi.
Yes, thank you for having me here. John has made a lot of valid and great points, I would say. Fortunately, I'm not the government, so I don't have to make these difficult decisions.
The government left earlier.
We are a state-owned company, and our job is essentially to analyze and make proposals to the government, for the government to take the final decisions. But,
I thought that was why I was sat in the middle, referee.
No, it's perfect, it's perfect. So in terms of challenges, I think from our point of view, there are three main challenges that we see. One is that we need to have obviously clear rules to develop this value chain, and for this to happen we need the regulatory framework, which we have been working on, and now it is under consultation with all the stakeholders, and I hope in the next few months, for sure by the end of the year, but I hope before, it will be finalized and actually voted and active. The second thing is that as my colleagues here have said before, we do need alignment in timing, let's say, for the FIDs between the different players of the value chain, and this requires a certain level of comfort. So our job, as it was correctly said about the tunnel, I agree, is to help bring people together, closer together from the different sides, from their different perspectives, and we need to communicate also to the government some risk that probably the government will have to take on its side to make things basically viable and economically viable for the value chain. Interface risk, we could consider contracts for difference and so forth. In principle, there is of course a positive a desire to help, but of course the devil is in the details, so the amounts, the mechanism and so forth are they still need to be worked out. Now, the third item is the storage capacity, because here in Greece we are fortunate on one hand to have three major industries who have already had innovation funding to develop their capture projects, and one more who is trying and probably will also get. And we do have Prinos, which we are very lucky to have Prinos as a storage site. But even Prinos at full capacity, still it's probably not enough for all the major industries in Greece. And we're not even talking about electricity, power producers and so forth. So we need to think about the future. And the future, it's either within Greece, where we have a cooperation with Hellenic Geological and Mineral Survey to try and study new areas for possible storage sites in Greece, with of course the difficult problem that we don't have basically other depleted oil fields in Greece, and we don't have a lot of seismic data or wells around the country. And the second option is to look also outside our borders, either in Italy, of course, which we have Ravenna, and this is something that, of course, the emitters can do on their own, but also in cooperation maybe with other countries like outside the EU, like we are doing with Egypt, where we have signed recently, the Ministry actually of Environment and Energy in Greece has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Minister of Petroleum in Egypt to cooperate in the development of a CCS chain, and more specifically to develop the regulatory framework to align basically with the EU one, and together to find possibilities for storage sites where Greek industry could actually bring their emissions. So these are the main challenges. On the positive note, I think the fact that we have this panel here, we have all these companies with funding, and we have Prinos where we soon hope to issue the draft storage permit to DG Klima. I mean, it's a great achievement, I think, for Greece, and we are at the forefront outside the North Sea area, of course, with the UK, Netherlands, Denmark, and so forth.
Right. Thank you, Femi. So we are under a lot of time pressure to help the organizers get the schedule back on track. So I think we can discuss for hours, but I think we should leave it at that. Just to pick on three main takeaways from the discussion. I think one is regulatory framework, the right incentives to make the economics work. The second that I noted that many of you mentioned is the need for cooperation, collaboration, and the correct timing of this collaboration to make it work. And thirdly, alternatives for storage capacity and the need to develop our industrial policy to make sure we prioritize the right investments. So I would like to really thank all of you for your great insights, and on behalf of everyone, the organizers, for the opportunity to discuss this exciting topic. Thank you all. Thank you very much.